Hey, what is up, guys? It's your boy Seventh here, back with another video, and I got my co-host here,
What's going on, guys?
and we're back with reviewing episode 2 of The Last of Us HBO show, titled "Infected." Now, we have a lot of things to say, but this time, we're gonna keep it short. This episode was only like 52 minutes, so we're gonna keep our thoughts up in like 15, 20 minutes. Last episode was about an hour long. But we're gonna keep it nice and brief and just give you guys our thoughts on certain key moments. So we're gonna start off with the intro, and FPS, you go first. So what did you think about the intro this time around?
So the intro was kind of like, what happened in episode one. It's given us a little backstory to pre-outbreak, I guess you could say. But in this opening, the events of the start of the outbreak has already, been going on for about 30 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave us the insight into like how the infection started. There was a scientist by the name of Ibu Ratna, if I'm saying that correctly. She was taken by the army, or the army in where was it?
Indonesia.
Indonesia, yeah. And she found out that the infection had started because of a flour and grain factory as the source. And they already have one of the infected who is deceased. They have her at the laboratory, and she's doing testing on this. I guess you could say patient zero, or one of the first patients. Damn, dude, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, it's all right. But I feel you. So my take on the intro, I'm gonna give it to Neil, but we're gonna talk about later on this episode. But I'm gonna give it to Neil. The intro was nice. It was hard hitting. It made me go like, wow, what if I was in that moment? How would I feel? Because later on in the intro, the doctor, she checks out a body that's infected, and she tells and then she reports back to the commanding officer that there's no cure, there's no nothing. Just the only thing we can do is just bomb the city. And she started crying. She said she want to go back home to her loved ones, and she knows she can't leave or escape either. So she wants to spend time with the rest of the time that she have with her family. And I thought that was good writing right there. I liked it. So the intros for these episodes, it's a nice 2 for 2. He's on a nice 2 for 2 right now. I'll give that to Neil. But later on this episode, we got a lot more things to talk about. So
yeah, if I could touch on the intro as well.
Mm-hmm.
When she said that, the only way to really stop this outbreak is to bomb the city to wipe it out. It gave a level of seriousness, which I think, like, when you bring in consequences into, like, shows, I guess it gives it more weight. Like, it's not, oh, this is serious. So when even when we were watching together and that scene happened, you were like, oh wow. So it does give a level of seriousness to it. And yeah, like you said, with her adding the line to "I want to be with my family," like, that's good writing. Like, you're right, it is a 2 for 2. The beginning, they got it, but how long will it last? Like, will they keep doing this little back and forth to 2003 to present day? But yeah, I really like the opening scene to this episode.
So I ain't gonna lie to you. I kind of like it I'm not gonna lie to you. If they do keep doing this back and forth, they show us what happened. Basically, that is outbreak day for us. Basically, it's showing us what happened. I would like if they would continue doing it for the rest of the episodes, but don't like drag it on too long. Maybe like show us a 2-minute clip, like, and then we back in present day with Joel and Ellie and them. But before we move off the intro, we found out that the cordyceps came from Indonesia, and it came from the flour. It came from a random worker got bit by somebody, patient zero. She was a flour worker at the mill where they do wheat and flour. And she attacked other workers, and like 14 other workers went missing. So that's how the virus started and spread. still doesn't really explain if the fungal lived inside the flower and the flower got transported everywhere else outside the country, the rest of the world. So, but that's what they're hinting at. It started in Indonesia, so Indonesia is ground zero.
So I'm guessing these little intros is what is going to give the backstory to how the outbreak started. That's what I'm getting at. Like, even by what what you mentioned just now, that's what it's hinting at to me. Like, we're going to keep getting these little brief, pre-outbreak clips,
Mm-hmm.
like they're doing. And that's what I'm taking away from it. That they're gonna eventually show us how the outbreak started. Like with the first episode, you had like just explaining of what could happen if there was an outbreak of a fungal infection.
Yeah.
And then this one, like you actually had the outbreak, and then it's kind of giving you bits and pieces of how the outbreak started. And I think they're gonna just go on in the future episodes to show us how it all happened.
Okay. So, moving on from the intro, it cuts to Joel and Ellie and Tess. Well, Tess and Joel are watching over Ellie's sleep, making sure, because from the last episode, they ran away, but they had to make sure, Ellie didn't turn on them. So they were overwatching her. Similar to the video game. And we're gonna just kind of speed past that because, everything else was similar to the video game. So they had to go to the Capitol. But before we talk about that, there's two things we got to talk about. Before we start talking about main story points, the CGI and the camera work to me is terrible. It's not up to quality standard that I was expecting from Sony and HBO. If it feels cheap, the background is blurry. I get that they're focusing on the characters, but tossing the fact that you're blurring out the background because you're focusing on the characters, then you have the camera shaking. That is not a good combo for me, man. It kind of made my head spin a little because it was kind of jarring that certain scenes didn't feel like the camera should move. Especially in that scene where after Joel and Tess, confirmed that Ellie didn't turn and that, they figure out, oh, that she's infected and that Marlene send them on a mission to make a cure out of her. They go through a building and then Tess goes ahead and then Joel and Ellie are stuck in this hallway and they just sit there. For some reason, the camera was shaking. Why is the camera shaking while they're not moving? Like, I don't know if they're trying to add some real effect to it, but it feels weird to me. And on top of that, FPS, I'm gonna let you go. But on top of that, the CGI also, it just feels cheap, fake. It feels like a home movie is being made right in front of me, and I just expected more. I know I could be nitpicking and stuff, but it just bothers me because like FPS brought it up. The scale of these buildings sometimes, like when they do a shot of them walking up to a building, it just feels off. It feels like they're tiny humans and like the building is like way bigger than it needs to be. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, like I mentioned to you while we were watching it, like with Joel and Ellie just like sitting opposite of each other, waiting for Tess to, unlock the door. The camera was moving. I'm like, why is the camera moving? And I pointed that out to you, and it's just, it cuts from the camera shaking while they're just stationary to another. It cuts to a different scene, and the camera's like perfectly still. I'm like, what's going on here? Like it really does. It really does mess with your eyes, the movement, and it looks like I'm it's like blurred vision, I guess.
Yeah,
Like
it
you
is
have motion,
really
like you have
bothering me.
motion blur, like
Yep.
there's motion blur in the show, and that's kind of it's off putting.
And that's crazy. Nobody likes motion blur in video games. Most people turn that settings off. But now we have
Oh, I turned
motion
it off
blur.
for sure. I
We have
turned it off for
motion
sure,
blur
man.
in a show and we can't turn it off, man. Oh man. So I know now that we're a second episode in, I kind of know how the camera work is gonna be. So I probably won't complain about it in future episodes. But I thought the camera work would get better, but it didn't. The budget also in the CGI looked like it's gonna stay the same. Um,
Yeah, like I had mentioned to you, or I mentioned, out loud a bunch of times, the CGI. It's just not there. Like it really does look like a home, like a home movie, I guess. Even there was a certain scene, when they're overlooking the city and you see the infected down below. You could tell that that's CGI. That's not like actual actors and the getup. That's CGI, and it looks weird, in certain aspects, and the building scales, like I mentioned to you, I'm like, it just doesn't look right. It looks like you're looking at a green screen, to be honest. And they just have the image, behind, and you have the actors like in front of the green screen just standing there. So it really, it's not there.
yeah, so maybe later on in season two. Oh man, and I dread season two for this show. Maybe on in season two they'll get a bigger budget and better CGI, but we know for the rest it's gonna be like this. So we're gonna tolerate it and we won't bring it up again. But just note that the way that people have been praising this thing made it seem like it was A1, but it's not. So, next thing to talk about is
What we have to talk about also
mhm,
is the pacing of the show. Do you feel like certain, like in the game, it kind of took you a little while to get to certain areas, even in the beginning of the game, like to downtown, the broken buildings, it kind of took, a little bit to get there. In the show, like you thought, based off the last preview, like the ending shot of the last episode, that broken building would be, this, like the pillar of this episode, but
mhm.
it seemed like, we entered a building. Tess did her thing. She, helped us get through, and then boom, like we were out of that building, and then we moved on to the museum. And in the museum, we got our first taste of the clickers. They kind of give you a tease, not really showing you their face, or anything else but their face. Like they'll show you the legs and the arms, approaching, and you can hear the clicking sounds. And then we got the reveal. Um, I don't know. I was taken aback just looking at, I guess, the IRL version of how the clickers looked. Um, I want to know what you thought about it.
I ain't gonna lie to you, it looked cheap. It looked plasticky.
Oh
I'm,
my
I'm
goodness, I was about to say the same thing. Like the face, it just looked like plastic. Like the only thing that sold me was probably like the lower bottom half of the mouth. Like the mouth and the chin area. But
mhm.
but like with the, I don't even know what you're supposed to call that, but the top portion of the head, it really did look like cheap, and I don't know, like it was throwing me off. It looked too shiny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Not only was the infected looking cheap, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna bring this up again. The choreography for these infected, like it feels like they're not like infected. Infected feels like a person playing an infected person. If you understand what I'm saying, like the way the infected was moving, it didn't look scary. It looked it goofy. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, man. It looked real goofy, and I'm like I was like, damn, why not just make the infected CGI? You could have probably gave it better movement than the human pretending to be like a clicker and like moving not erotic, erratic.
Same thing could be said for the look of it as well. Like they could have done like CGI on the face, and it would have
But
probably looked a little better.
we
I
already complaining about the CGI, so it probably would have been worse. So, hey,
Yeah, no.
we'll take it as it is. But that's the opinion on fit on the clickers. They're like, it's all right. I guess I'm not gonna hate on it. I'm just like, it's eh. It's that's what
It
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 is.
does. I will give it that it does kind of give you like a suspense, because even you and I were talking about it in the before recording this episode, that the beginning of this episode was great. Like building
Mm-hmm.
up to this part, like it was great. And
Oh, wait,
then
hold on.
even
Before you continue, just hold that thought. So throughout this whole episode, guys, this episode was mostly mainly walking. So they were just showing off the city and everything. So um, the beginning half was good. Now we're talking about the later half. So continue.
yeah, um So like the beginning portion, the opening, I guess the familiarities between Joel, Ellie, and Tess, them trying to get a figure on each other, because the last episode they weren't really together for so long. The beginning of this one, they're just getting a feel for each other, and then building up to like the scene where the clickers come out. Like it does give you a little bit of I guess suspense, or like like it's building tension, because they go into the museum, they see these dead bodies, and they're progressing slowly up the stairs, and the floorboards are creaking, and I guess like the music a little, the music adds to it a little as well, um, up until the point you start hearing the clicking of the clickers. It really gives you it. I would say it gives you like some sort of chills, because you know what's coming, what the clickers are all about, regardless of how they look. I guess for the casual fan, the casual viewer, like it would really sell. It will sell the clickers to them.
I'll give them that. It does kind of strike fear, because they have to be quiet, like, and it reminds me of that movie, A Quiet Place. So
Yeah,
it reminds me of that when they have to be quiet. So I was like, okay, they got the tension right. Even though
yeah, the
the
tension.
clickers was
That's exactly
moving,
what it is.
yeah, they got that right. I'll give that to them. Even though the clickers moving goofy, they nailed that the tension. If they make noise, it they're in big trouble. I'm trying not to curse too
Yeah.
much.
No, but yeah, that they did get the tension, the suspense. Like I was like, even though I know what's going on, you're kind of like holding your breath to see what would happen. But the museum scene, it was a little one for one. It was following the track of the game as well, and I thought it was neat. Like I enjoyed that part, but there's more to come. There's more to come of the episode, and I'll let you take over from now.
So before we jump in, to that museum, let's go back a little. Before they get there, they're on their trip. This is not a nitpick. This is a serious deviation that I have. Remember when they had to get to the Capitol and they had to cross a roof, and Joel had to find a board and make Ellie cross, and Ellie was not sure, but Joel gave Ellie confidence to cross over to that board. So
Mm.
Ellie, Joel is taking care of Tess, because Tess got injured during that fight in the museum.
She hurt
Um,
her ankle.
she hurt her ankle, and while Joel is taking care of Tess, Ellie, there's a scaffolding already connecting the two buildings. So that's strike one. It felt cheap to me. Like I said, the budget here just feels cheap. Like they downgraded certain things. Like
Or
they
the
couldn't pull
pacing, I
off.
would say. The
Yeah, they
pacing, that they're trying to rush through some aspects of the game in the show.
I guess if you want to call it the phasing, I call it budget. So the scaffolding was already there, and then Ellie just casually walks along it without no issue, without like, whoa, I'm about to
But
fall, like,
there's
or anything, and it's like, I'm like, this did not happen in the game. And again, I know it's not everything's supposed to be a 1-for-1, but they could have mimicked that scene just a little bit more instead of doing it the way they
you
did.
know
Here it just felt rushed and like,
you know why they
boo.
didn't? Because this came after the museum. Once they got done in the museum, and Tess says, let's get out of here. That's when that scaffolding scene happens. And Ellie was like, inside was scary. This isn't scary. When Joel was like, be careful crossing the board. So that's why she
Hmm.
walked across with no issue. So I guess that's the change that they made, or it's just to show some tension or suspense of like the actual seriousness of what just happened, as opposed to her just walking across the board, which is like way easier than trying to stay quiet and sneak around clickers.
Mm. Well, if that's what he wants to do, but that was just one deviation that I saw that doesn't sit right with me. So, the rest of the episode progresses similar towards the game. but we're gonna get to the one and final deviation at the last 10 minutes of the episode. But before we get to that, there's a couple more things we gotta talk about. Let's talk about the Walmart version of Joel that we have here and how he has his ultimate weapon that he hasn't earned yet. Joel, this Joel, Mr. Pedro Pascal, his acting as Joel is bothering me. I feel like he's not giving his all, or this Joel that he is like some type of I don't even know what to describe him. He's not an asshole, but he's just like a he's just I don't know, bro. He's not like how the Joel was in the game. And I'm not saying for him to be the exact version of Joel in the game. I'm saying for at least his version to be different and like more noticeable. Like, okay, this Joel kind of moving different, you know. But this Joel just feels like I'm not gonna call him a wimp, but I don't know. How would you describe him, FES?
I would say a wimp. Yeah. Um, I don't know. It just seems like Joel has everyone else around him making, I guess, the decisions for him. Um,
You picked that up. You noticed that too, right?
yeah, like it's giving me that kind of energy, and even with what happens in the upcoming portion we're about to talk about, like it just seems like Joel is like a step behind, and he's just like
He's just
experiencing things that are,
reacting.
he's just reacting. He's not on top of it or like one step ahead or just like how Joel should be. Like you've been dealing with this for 20 years. Like you should be on the ball. It just he does seem like a wimp, and I told you that. Like I told you that this is like the Walmart version of Joel because it's just he's Pedro is not selling it for me. Like it's not there. Like I know you're Joel, but you're not Joel. You're not giving Joel.
And not only that, I know you told me this is gonna be a nitpick, but I don't care. Why does Joel have his AR rifle with him in the beginning already? He did not earn that. This Joel did not earn that. All right, I know, and I understand you get the rifle at the end of the game, but why did they give it to him here? Like, why couldn't they give him a hunting rifle or a shotgun? And this leads us up to the final part of this episode when Joel, Tess, and Ellie make it to the Capitol. It plays out similar to the game. They find all the flies dead. Then Tess reveals to Joel and Ellie that she's bit. Well, Ellie figured it out because the way she was acting. But if you played the game, you already know.
Well,
So
yeah, like in leading up to the scene that they're going to the Capitol, you could see that Tess is moving in like haste, like, hey, pick up the step, like we have to get here, like, like she knows she's running out of time, but Joel and Ellie don't know that, but you can kind of see that Joel senses that a little bit, like something's different, like why is she being so antsy and, kind of hostile? And then that's when they do get to the Capitol and they find that all the fireflies are dead. Um, in this scene, like they did the inverse, in the game, you have, was it Fedra who was chasing after,
yeah, it was Fedra chasing after us, and then
after, yeah,
Tess
after them.
sacrificed herself to stop Fedra while they were chasing us and give us enough time to run.
In
But
this one, the fireflies are dead, and while they're having their little talk and discussion that this is over, we should go back to the QZ, that there's no point to this, that's when Tess reveals that she's infected. She can't go back, she's gonna stay. And it just it plays as an inverse. There's an infected that was just a crawler that was off to the side listening to their conversation until it decided to move, and Joel puts it down. And earlier in the show, or earlier in the episode, Joel mentioned that if was it Joel or Tess, that if you touch
yeah, I was just about to bring that up too. We had to bring that up a little so it made sense. So it was Joel saying that now, so this is a new thing in the show, this wasn't in the game. If you touch a patch of fungi, or you touch the infected that are sleeping, or you touch a patch of fungus, it can alert the surrounding hordes around you. So this is something new now that they've
Around
added
you or
in.
miles away is what they said, like far away.
No, that's it said around you. I don't think it'll be miles away, but like 12 blocks away, he said, maybe.
Yeah.
So this is something new the show brought up. So back to what you were saying, Joe blasts that infected that starts to move. Go ahead.
And then the fungus starts to grow around the fingers of the infected that just died, and that triggers, because the fungus grows underground. So that's what they
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, that it could trigger fungus or infected that are far away. And it does just that, surprisingly. It starts to grow around some of the infected that are sleeping, and they start to wake up. And that shot, the shot of them moving as a pack, I thought was really good. I enjoyed that scene. I won't lie to you. I thought that was nice. And they have about a minute, is what Joe says, that they have until the horde reaches them. That's when Tess decides to sacrifice herself by dumping gas canisters around, grenades. And just the dialogue in this scene, I just thought it was so cheesy. Like Tess was telling Joel that you have to protect something that's worth protecting, or that's that's alive, which is basically Ellie. I just thought it was so cheesy. Like, it was just the dialogue, the scripting, the writing, it wasn't up to par. Like, it was just not there for me. Like, it wasn't selling it. It just wasn't there. Like, the emotion wasn't there, and it just didn't sell it for me. I was like, and I was talking to you about this. I was like, as I was hearing it, I was telling Seventh, I'm like, yo, we have to talk about this, because this is, it's not capturing me right now.
It is not. So, this, oh my God, he's doing more deviations, bro. This massive deviation here. Tess's death is the worst thing I've seen in the show so far. I would have preferred if they did the 1-to-1 of how she died, where she held off Fedra while, Joel and Ellie ran off. This was stupid. Bro, they did that cliche where the lighter doesn't work until the last fucking moment, and I hate that so fucking much, bro.
I told you that.
She let an infected walk up and fucking tongue kiss the fuck out of her, French kissed her down, all in her mouth, and like, what? Tess in the game went out like a badass, bro. She was busting back at the ops, killing people until she couldn't no more, bro. At least here, I thought here she would at least start shooting at the infected, but nah, she fucking with the lighter, trying to light this shit, man, like a fucking crackhead. Like,
I told you that, because she picks up an AK and she like uncans the gas canisters and knocks them over, right? And then once she does that and the gas is all over the floor, that's when she starts to fiddle with the lighter. And I'm like, just pick up the AK and shoot the ground and shoot the gas, like let the fire, start with that,
bro.
But they want to do the cliche with the lighter and her flicking it while the infected have broken through the door and are running past her. I'm like, do they not hear her flicking the lighter? Like, what is this? And then you had the passionate kiss of death, I guess, that they had. And then, like you said, at the end, when she needs it the most, that's when the lighter, magically turns on and it explodes the building. I just thought, everything up until this point, it was
good. It was all
good,
right. And now it's just terrible, bro.
They didn't stick the landing. And then what Ellie, since Joel and Ellie had to make their getaway, Ellie's dialogue to that, saying, Joel, like, I don't want to go with you, or, whatever she had said, like, because I guess she wanted to stay with Tess, and she grew to like Tess. But I just thought that whole scene was just, it wasn't there, man. They didn't stick the landing.
See, like I said, I gave Neil credit before, but now he just keeps fucking up. So I can write a better scene and just follow with me. This is how it should have gone. There were grenades in there. Tess should have put up a fight. She should have tossed, like, it could have been a little chase scene. She could have been chased to like a dead end, and then that would have been more significant, right? So Tess Joel and Ellie leaves. Tess gets ready for a fight. She drops the gas canisters. This time the lighter works straight off rip. She lights the floor. A couple infected get burned while they're running through the door, right? They catch on fire, they die, but more is still coming through, right? She's running through in the building, shooting back with the AK, throwing grenades, and then until she can't no more. She runs into a dead end and she's on her last mag with her last two frag grenades, but the infected are too much and they overwhelm her and then she dies like that. That to me would have been a more badass scene and more death worthy scene than her standing still getting a kiss of death with fungal all in her mouth. This was
Honestly,
terrible.
honestly, what they could have done is the I Am Legend scene of her, because she mentions it earlier in the show to Ellie that she's saying you might be infected, but you won't survive being ripped apart by the infected, right? And what would have been a way better, fit, or like a way better, send off to her if she would have had a grenade in her hand and they started to, like rip her apart, and that's when she pulls the pin and it explodes, the building explodes, and that's when we get the scene of Ellie outside with Joel. I think that would have been better. What you said would have been better. I just, just sitting there and watching her, fiddle with the lighter until, you know, when it's needed at the last moment, before she's, swept away off her feet with that kiss. Um, it's I just don't know.
And
It
so
didn't do it
far,
for me.
I feel like we're not gonna see any crazy deaths. I want to see people get ripped apart. Like, I ain't affected supposed to be ripping people apart. Don't we have all these brutal death scenes in the game of the Joel just getting his jaw ripped or he getting slapped around and then they ripping him apart like I'm tired of these cutaway deaths. Like if when they cut away from like Tess exploding and the building being on fire, like okay. Like I would rather like us actually see her just like blowing up, and taking as many affected with her, actually seeing like, body parts shred as the explosion happened. And I feel like that would have been more, how would you say, in depth or more hard hitting. I don't
Yeah.
know, but
Honestly, you could have kept it how it was if you had Tess just hold the grenade, like pull the pin, and then you see like a stream of tears just fall down her face while she's getting kissed by the infected, and then it explodes, and you could see the explosion happening, and then like you have the cutaway, but
you'd be like, damn, she really gone. Like you see her, like just her body starts like ripping from the explosion, and you see all the infected also body parts getting ripped by the explosion because it could have been better, bro. This was a massive deviation. I did not like it. I can tell these deviations are gonna get way much worse than what we're watching now. Um, so overall, you know, this episode was good. Then in the beginning, then it started getting and then it just ended off kind of bad to me, you know. But before we, there's one more thing I want to bring up. I don't know if you heard, but when Tess was saying you have to take Ellie somewhere, she mentioned Bill and Franks. Bill and Franks? Anybody? Or I thought
yeah,
it was just Bill. Now it's Bill and Franks. It's not. It's no longer Bill's town. It's Bill and Frank's town. But anything you want to say on that, FES?
yeah. If they made the change to the ending of this episode and how the capital scene went down with Tess, like you can only imagine what Neil has in store, and what the next episode would be with Bill and Franks. But the only thing I want to touch on is the ending scene. The ending scene with the building exploding in the background. You have the infected, kind of like running out on fire, and Joel walks away, and you just have this long shot of Ellie there, just standing there. I don't know what was the purpose for that. I don't know what the purpose was for her, just like staring into the camera with that in the background. Like, were you not just distraught that we were leaving Tess behind, but you're just there, like, you know.
I guess
I don't get what they're going for with with certain scenes like that.
he's copying too many cliches, bro. Like I said before, man, this guy tried so hard to be in the TV and film industry. He's just writing the certain cliches that other TV producers and movie producers have already done. Movie directors, TV directors have already done before, man. So like that shot was just I didn't feel anything in that shot, bro. Like it was just like okay, like bro, move along, bro. Like come on now, man.
Honestly,
Neil,
if you would have just had Joel and Ellie walk away, and then you have the building burning in the background, I'd have been fine with that. But just like Ellie
yeah,
looking there, with just like just the straightest face or the weirdest face, like what do we take away from this?
yeah, that would have been much better. Like the background shot just kept enlarging, and we keep seeing Ellie and Joel just walk away while the building's on fire, while the background is like fading while it's enlarging. That would have been better, bro. Bro, we could be movie directors, TV producers. Yo, man, like, see, I was giving this guy credit in the beginning, bro, because the beginning had me hooked. Now it's like he can't keep, bro. This is just like part 2, but let me not get into that. Just all I can say is this man don't know how to keep his pacing right, bro. This some of these scenes just feel just off. Like they're just rushing through everything, even though they said they had a lot of time to do things and plan out each episode. Like these episodes are long. These aren't 30-minute episodes. So overall, this episode was kind of froze there for a second. I don't know, man. It was just I'm gonna give it an The beginning was good, but then the rest of it was just man. It was just kind of bad. So that's how I feel about it. How you feel about it overall? FPS?
But the opening scene to me, it really captured my attention. It had me interested in the episode. Like, okay, like where are we going from here? And I didn't mind the walking and going from place to place, but it's just when you don't stick the landing, that's when it's just like how much longer is the show going to keep me watching, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was 50-50 for me. It was good, and then it had its moments when I was like overall for me it was 50-50. It had my attention in the beginning. The opening was really good. I really enjoyed the beginning. Honestly, if they made the show about the beginning of the outbreak, that'd be way better. Then we already know what the story is for the game. But if they made a story of the outbreak in the beginning, that would have been way better in my opinion. But overall, he just has to stick the landing with these episodes. So it's the endings really gotta bring it home for me.
Yeah, for us to get invested. Now I'm kind of like just iffy on everything.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be it for us, guys. You guys let us know how you guys feel about this episode. It's looking a little shaky, but we're gonna continue on. How many more episodes? What? 6 more episodes? 8 more episodes?
Yeah, I'd say 8, probably like 10, a 10 episode season.
Okay, so yeah, 8 more episodes to go. So we'll be back next week. You guys let us know how you guys feel about this, about these massive deviations that Neil is taking. He had it in the beginning, but then he just couldn't stick the landing, just like part 2. But that's gonna be it for us. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
When you get mad, you say trust God, yelling you should calm down from